Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mowing After Dark on the College Football Mafia Network. I want to say hello to everybody who's watching us out there on this Sunday night. I am, of course, your host, Moen, and I am joined by my co-host, Rock. How are you doing, Rock?
I'm doing good, and I will apologize in advance. All the windows are closed, but there's like a Sunday concert in the park starting like 3 blocks away from here, and depending upon the wind blows, we might have extra rock no matter what I do.
Okay, well, hey, we'll take it. We'll get some free background music. Hopefully, YouTube won't claim it, but
Yeah, no cold, but I don't think there'll be any Coldplay.
okay, no Coldplay. Yes, definitely no Coldplay. Nate and Philip like Coldplay. That
I heard
Moen,
that. I'm crushed. I don't know how you could be called the Mafia Channel if you like Coldplay
yeah,
as part of your core DNA.
Listen. Well, there are far more people I think who don't like Coldplay on the channel than them. But yeah, this is a Coldplay-free zone here on Moen After Dark. I don't like Coldplay. Never will, never have, and I don't like people who name their kids Apple.
I
Apple
like my
is a
computer's
fruit.
Apple. That's about it.
Yeah, apple is a fruit. It's not a name you give a child. So, let's get it started here. We're going to roll it in here and talk to some people. Ryan Willie, he's first in chat. He says hi.
Hey
CFM.
Ryan,
Good to see you, Ryan. I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance, guys. Soundboard is down tonight. I had to factory reset the tablet. So while that's factory resetting, so I can add a new soundboard program to it, we are just kind of stuck with the 9 original sounds. So I apologize if you were looking for a particular sound. Ryan, so for example, for this super chat, Wisconsin got screwed again. First Lucas, now Four Queen, subpar recruiting. If there's no bowl, has to go. And I'm assuming he's talking about, of course, Luke Fickle. And you know what? Here, I'll give you this one. Luke Fickle has to go.
Oh, yeah.
You get a little bit of the Macho Man, Ryan. Thank you for the super chat. By the way, if anybody wants to donate to the channel, help support us financially, you can give us a super chat, leave us a super sticker, become a member, or gift a membership. You do all that by just clicking the little cash icon, like Ryan Willie did, our very friendly / evil badger, depending on whose side you're on. If you are Wild Ute, he is an evil badger. He's probably the most evil badger on the earth. So, but funny, Ryan, I was thinking about you today. I've been watching a lot of college football highlights. Just trying to satiate that thirst. I know we're getting close, but I got to have something. It was a Big 12 game I was watching. It was Texas Tech, TCU at Texas Tech, I believe. Gigantic ass possum ran onto the field. They were able to corral it. Could you imagine if Wisconsin in the big house, a big old badger got on the field? I would love to see somebody try and corral that.
well, Ryan, hopefully, I don't know what to tell you because you're in the position where if you don't want meh to happen with your coach, you almost want it to like happen fast if it's going to happen. Because if you wind up getting another 7-5 season, does that or something like that, does that get you the results you want, or are you better off getting a beating at Alabama?
Yeah, the Alabama game, that's going to be a tough one for Wisconsin. I'd like to think that they could pull that off, but hey, they should have pulled off beating Oregon last year. No excuse on that offense. C. Curtis with a $20 super chat. We'll let him cook.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
He says, "Hey Moen, Petiti must grow a pair of brass cojones. Move first. Fox, CBS, and NBC will back a move, bringing Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, Clemson, and possibly Georgia Tech, leaving space for Stanford and Cal, with 1 or 2 new network partners. Problem we're going to have here, Notre Dame is covered. They're in the contract. If you go out and get Florida State, Miami, Clemson, you cannot have it on paper that they're going to pay you more. It would have to be some kind of verbal agreement. and then the Big Ten could, add them and say, oh, now we should go to, that kind of thing. But the SEC, they've got pro rata from ESPN. They can just go add and it's covered. So, but I do believe we will have one more partner coming up, and it will be a streaming company. So, but I do like that lineup. I mean, that's if we're talking about just pure value, there is no more valuable a lineup than Florida of available teams. We're talking about the ACC, Big 12, Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, and Clemson. That would be that's your $1 million quartet there.
Yeah, look, if you get those right, I'm going to assume Florida State is going to revert to form, right, which is not a 2-10 team, is more likely a 9-3, 10-2, 11-1 type of school, depending upon the year. Clemson is already there. Georgia Tech's on the rise. Miami's hopefully maintaining last year, not going backwards, and Notre Dame has been consistent. I think you have a very fair argument in any given year that the Big Ten, is pound for pound, even with the SEC on brands, and probably higher in most years.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it earlier today. Clemson, who Clemson reminds me a lot of? They would remind me a lot of Penn State. Small town, big university, huge crowds. Death Valley, their Death Valley, obviously a huge college football game day atmosphere. If the Big Ten were to go get Clemson, I think they'd almost be the Penn State of the South.
Yeah, I mean, I have no recall back in the day where Penn State was ranked academically when they came to the Big Ten, but I would think that any school coming to the Big Ten is going to fall into the all boats rise kind of thing and just become a self-fulfilling prophecy of trying to compete with your peers everywhere and being augmented by your peers. So that probably accelerates Clemson's trajectory towards things like the AAU, even if it might be further away.
Likewise for Florida State, if Florida State was to come along in that quartet. But yeah, we're going to talk about that tonight because I do want to talk about the Big Ten, the Southeast, how it's going to play there. So we will talk about that. Curtis, thank you for the $20 super chat. I appreciate that very much, sir. Thank you for that. Joseph Kurlagon Jr. is in the house. I believe he's a Notre Dame fan. The Big Ten will take over the state of Florida and Georgia in recruiting in another year, right after SEC schools find out tradition does not beat money. Ask Nick Saban about Texas spending. Fair, Joseph, fair enough. But ask Nick Saban about Texas A&M spending. You're muted, Rock.
I was saying both are spending, right? But that's like the game. Like I don't really even necessarily get the whole spending thing. Like people get paid now, so it's not in whether there still remains under their table things or above board, above the table things. And some schools have the money, and both of those schools have it. Whether they were in the Big 12 before or now in the SEC, they just have more of it. But they were already in the top. They were already the 1%.
Yeah, definitely. These were not universities who weren't spending before NIL and RevShare came along. These universities were definitely spending. There were definitely a lot of gold Trans Ams going around. You know what I mean? Friends call me Sean. Big can put a footprint in the Southeast, but can't wait on the SEC to move first. They should offer Miami and Florida State or Miami and Clemson now, then work on UNC. Can wait on Georgia Tech till UNC decides. Big plus Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Georgia Tech equals win. Yeah, I mean, again, I think here's the thing. The Big Ten's media deal does come up before the SEC. And as we talked about last week, every major realignment has happened within a 24-month period of a television contract expiring. So the money may be there in 2030. But for right now, the SEC can just go out there and take anybody they want. And again, they have pro rata. They can just, if North Carolina can free themselves from the Wolfpack backpack, if Virginia can free themselves from Virginia Tech, the SEC can just pay them as full partners right away.
Yeah. Look, I'm one of the people who errs on the side of, if the Big Ten really wants to get what they really want, and Fox agrees with what they really want, that contract will be redrawn and reamended as soon as possible, regardless of when the expiration date is. There's a number in that area that works both for Fox and for the Big Ten to start the contract earlier or amend it earlier, just because of the opportunistic ability to get teams, and maybe get teams that they thought they would lose to the SEC, by making sure that a school like Florida State, in a theoretical world where both conferences could get them, doesn't have to make a decision between a half share for X amount of years versus a full share on day one.
And that's going to be the thing. It's going to be hard for the Big Ten to compete against the SEC in that regards because, again, that pro rata.
But I don't think it's that hard. I think it's you talk to your partners and you come up with a new deal. You add a couple more years. There's a quid pro quo. Everyone thinks the contracts are locked in forever. They're not.
No,
they can be amended. I don't know that they will be.
I understand that, but I think it's going to be very difficult to get Florida State, Miami, Clemson, Georgia Tech, any of these schools we're talking about, as a full member payout. Because the media partners are not only going to have to make a full media payout to them, they're going to have to make Washington and Oregon whole.
Right. It may not be yeah, I understand all those things. It just depends upon the situation. Probably not going to happen, but I just mean it's not necessarily impossible if they do the math over the next 10 years and not like what's happening over the next 2.
Friends Call Me Sean says Notre Dame wants to play USC, Clemson, and Miami. There they are, all sitting in the Big Ten. Wouldn't that be fantastic if Notre Dame put that Clemson contract out there to try and have a backup plan for when USC stops scheduling them and the Big Ten takes Clemson, and Clemson immediately walks away from that deal.
Scheduling deals are definitely made to be broken.
Yes, they are. As Indiana showed us this week.
Yes. Weak. Emphasis on the word weak.
Well, hey, I mean, I think that's the future of college football right there. I think you're probably going to see a stiff decline, especially if we go to like a 5-11 model. I think it's a stiff, decline in people wanting to schedule tough out of conference.
Yeah, I think that's the obvious thing that people will say because they think that everyone's relying on the record. But if your extra win takes down your strength of schedule so much and you wind up losing out by decimal points because your strength of schedule sucked because you canceled Virginia to go to Northwest, Southeastern Virginia Tech, then all of a sudden that trading the win for a loss or the risk of a loss for the decline in your overall schedule, Virginia aside, unintended consequences. All these people are idiots. I'm sorry. They're all idiots. We've been watching it for 30 freaking years now. They're all supposed to be smart. It's supposed to be higher education. There should be brains, media executives, and all we see is stupidity. They can't even execute a deal 2 weeks in without getting threatened to get sued right away because they decided what kind of business is or can't get an NIL program going and what is a valid or not valid fair market deal.
There you go. There's a rant from Rock and Rant.
I'm just exhausted by the stupidity. It's like,
but we
shouldn't be able to predict it. I shouldn't be able to, you shouldn't be able to predict the stupid stuff we're going to see when these deals come because we're not lawyers. Some of us have more or less experience in contracts and the entertainment space and media. But when we all see train wrecks coming and they still run into them.
I don't disagree with you, Rock, but even going back to the time of the BCS, the 4-team playoff, the 12-team playoff, the committee seems to put record above strength of schedule. The only time it didn't was when Florida State got screwed over in favor of Alabama. But, I mean, there have been times where there have been schools that had a clearly better strength of schedule and one loss that lost out to a team with a weaker schedule that went undefeated.
Yeah, and I also remember computers putting Florida State in over Miami if they both had one loss and Miami beat Florida State head-to-head.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, as long as record continues to be valued so highly by the committee, people are going to start scheduling cupcakes. Listen, Ohio State hasn't scheduled any cupcakes. We got Texas, Alabama, and Georgia on the schedule. MBM says, oh, wait, forgot to read this one from Conundrum. Notre Dame will end up fooling the Big 12 into allowing their non-rev sports in their conference while keeping their independence. God bless them. Let them do it. I say let them do it. MBM says UNC needs to hurry up and do something.
But do they really? I mean,
But-
aren't they one of the two that doesn't have to hurry up and do anything?
The other question is, but can they? North Carolina State is still got a lot of people in the legislature up there. They
Yeah,
could.
I mean, we don't know. For all we know, they have the car, the gas tank all fueled and the car is ready to go, and there's a big ass chain against the rear axle around a whole building.
It's like one of them when you get too many parking fines and they put the thing on the tire.
Yes.
That might be the situation. You get a great, Lamborghini, you're ready to go, you're fueled up. Can't drive with that on your tire.
They should put one of those on Bill Belichick. And did you see that Hulu's doing it? Is doing, in fact, like their Hard Knocks kind of thing?
Yes.
I mean, we should just live stream those shows. We should do watch parties and just see if it's as much of a train wreck as we think it will be.
Sorry, Georgia fans, but I think Georgia should get a sponsorship with those. Did you see the stat? Somebody put it on Twitter. I think it might have been in our Mafia family Twitter discussion. Kirby has had like 23 arrests in the Georgia football program. He's had 24 wins and 23 arrests.
Yes, there was a moment where we were dunking on Kirby a lot for driving, and that stat sounds plus or minus accurate. Most of those are speeding, to be fair, not like mass murder, but there have been some deaths involved.
Yeah. Unfortunately, but I'm not here to dunk on Georgia just yet. Give me time. Ryan Willie with the 50 pieces of chicken McNuggets.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I wish I could pay on Wisconsin for you.
Let him cook.
I owe you
Let
that
him cook
one.
now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Winner.
But you know what I can do? I can look for that Badger to dance right there. There you go. There he is. The Locked On Badgers podcast host is a big Fickle guy because he took Cincinnati to the playoffs. In my opinion, Fickle was a one-year wonder. LOB host believes it can be turned around. He also thinks he'll survive regardless of what happens. Ryan, I hear what you're saying, and I completely get it. I do. I completely understand, as a Badger fan, where you're coming from. Luke Fickell, he actually did a pretty damn good job at Cincinnati building that program. It was beyond 1 year, and come to think of it, you've got to remember one of his proteges was a coach in the national championship game last year. Marcus Freeman got his start under Luke Fickell. So Luke Fickell is a good coach. He made a bad decision when he took over that program. He wanted to revolutionize the Wisconsin program. He brought in an offensive coordinator. He didn't have the players to run that kind of offense. He got some of the players to run that offense, dealt with injury issues. He rebuilt the car he didn't even need to rebuild. You're Wisconsin. Just monster offensive linemen and run the damn ball.
I mean, I just don't get what he did at that point. Or maybe it's not his mistake. Maybe it's the athletic director's mistake for hiring somebody who's not a good fit for the program because the kind of offense he wanted to run doesn't fit what is likely to be successfully recruited to Wisconsin and taking advantage of whatever natural advantages you have in your key recruiting market that you then supplement from outside.
Well, here's another part to remember. At Cincinnati, he did not run that type of offense. He didn't. When he got Cincinnati to the playoffs, it was a much more balanced offense. There was a lot of running. But I think What happened was he got that job at Wisconsin and he said, we're going to compete with Ohio State. I'm sorry, you're not going to get the same types of recruits at Wisconsin that you're going to get at Ohio State.
No.
It's going to be very hard to go. Like, you're not going into South Florida and pulling a Jeremiah Smith. You might pull a 3-star wide receiver you can develop, but I can guarantee you what you can pull at Wisconsin, 5 guys on the offensive line that can eat glass. I know what you can pull at Wisconsin, a running back that can bruise. I mean, look at some of the running backs that have come through that program.
Yeah, for sure.
Melvin Gordon. I mean, Ron Dane. Dozens of them. Barry Alvarez was winning the Big Ten somewhat frequently, regularly, when he was a head coach at Wisconsin. And it was always the same blueprint. You get monsters up front. The defense, too. J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt out of Wisconsin. I mean, come on. You go get the big guys you can get. You get them big farm boys. You run the ball. You rush the passer. And I think Fickle tried to make Wisconsin into Ohio State, and it didn't work. It just 100% did not work. So we'll see, Ryan. Maybe he's got enough this year to pull it off, but I tend to agree with probably the Locked On Badgers hosts that he probably will survive this year. I think it depends on how bad it gets in Madison. If it's like a 2 or 3 win season, yeah, you're going to get fired. But if he can get you to 5 or 6, they're probably going to retain him for at least 1 more year. But thank you for the super chat, Ryan. I do owe you an on Wisconsin.
On a sort of related note, while we're there, technically this past week would have been the day that one of the days, I think Monday or Tuesday, would have been when we should have heard the Miami response to the initial Wisconsin lawsuit. But I guess Wisconsin had done some amendment to the original filing right before the 4th of July. So that's why we haven't heard even like the basic response from Miami on the whole Xavier Lucas one. I don't know if it's later this week that it's due or the Monday after this week, depending upon what day they did that amendment to the complaint, even if it was like a minor one.
Yeah, and I got to be honest. When Luke Fickell was hired at Wisconsin, I thought that was the hire of that cycle, in my opinion. Everybody was going off about Matt Rule at Nebraska, and I thought Fickell was just going to take that program with the guys they could get, and put a competent passing game in there, and wear people down, win some 17-14 games, But I don't know, Ryan. I'm with you. I'd like to see him succeed, but if he does pretty bad, we'll find out. We'll find out. That's all we can say. Conundrum says, like button, almost forgot it. Absolutely. If you guys would, please hit the like button. Helps us tremendously in the algorithm. We are right now broadcasting live on YouTube as well as X. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the X feed. If you are watching us on X, please consider coming over to our YouTube channel, the CFB Mafia, at the CFB Mafia on YouTube, and checking us out from there. It would be appreciated. But I am going to go ahead and remove and delete. All right. Let's try and say hello to some more people here. I wanted to get some more people here, just get some hellos before we get into the big topic of the night. And I want to hear some people's opinions on it. Bob Swanger, Penn State Nittany Lion, says, hey, everyone. Good to see you, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
A lot of people got Penn State as a favorite to win the national championship this year. Morris Simmons says, hello, everyone. Go Noles. Want to get your opinion a little later on, Morris. Steele Austin says, evening all, go Utes. Almighty Finn's in the house. Jackson Johnson's in the house. Thank you,
What's up,
Jackson Johnson, moderator extraordinaire here on the channel. Sean Ski's here. He says hello to everyone. D5 Terps would be perfectly fine with Miami plus Florida State or Clemson and Notre Dame. I think they've got to do more than just Florida. I get that Florida's an important state, but I think you need to do more than just Florida. Scavin, yes. Hello, gentlemen. How you doing, Scavin? I'm sure he's hoping Matt Rule will do wonders for Nebraska this year and Dylan Rayola's sophomore season. Tony Lawson, 20 is plenty, and big media partners are in no hurry to expand. I can't speak for the Big Ten media partners. Mr. Ed Wayner's in the house. Hello, gentlemen. Rocket looks like Miami is bringing it on their recruiting trail.
It's a little hit and miss right now. I mean, the recruiting class is still good. It's still a top 10, but Miami lost this guy, Derek Cooper, today, who's a South Florida running back who was all Miami for a long time, and then the last few weeks it trended away and went over to Texas, who is on their own little roll right now. So it's good, but it's not good enough. Can't keep losing Derek Coopers and Jeremiah Smiths.
Yeah, definitely can't afford to lose Jeremiah Smiths. But thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, you jerk.
Along the highlights I was watching this season were like the 100 best plays in the college football season, and Jeremiah Smith was in like 16 of them. So
yeah, I literally programmed my browser to use AI to block any mentions of Jeremiah Smith in videos on my YouTube channel.
Conundrum says Coldplay, thumbs down.
I told Greg it should be his official song for his bets because it's a Coldplay.
There you go. The freezer can use that. Movie Time Blue says Petita can't do jack without the presidents. Absolutely true. Tony Lawson wants Fickle to get a 10-year extension. I'm telling you right now, Tony. I think the battle.
I like Ryan, so I don't want that, but I love that also just because I'm anti-Luke Fickle forever.
What did Luke Fickle do to you?
Glass houses.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of his time at Cincinnati.
Plus,
sorry.
like, you don't really want a head coach that's very fickle about anything.
But Tony, I'm telling you right now, and I've told Greg this, I think Wisconsin takes the axe this year. Even if they have a bad team, I think they win that rivalry game this year. Shonsky wants to know, Mullen, why in the hell would Fox hire Dave Portnoy? Does he even know anything about college football other than he sat in the stands at Michigan? No, Dave Portnoy's a douchebag, but
he stayed in Holiday Inn Express last night, so it's all good.
Well, yes, Dave Portnoy is a douchebag, but guess what? That is what is selling in sports media now.
In America.
And Fox Sports 1 is just a dumpster fire. Absolute dumpster fire. I'm not saying ESPN is any better, but comparatively, there's just been no chemistry on Fox Sports 1 since Skip Bayless got Me Too'd and Shannon was let go. Yeah,
I mean, ESPN has major rights that they own, right? So that it doesn't matter. They can ride not having viewership at other parts or people being pissed at them because you still have to watch them for certain things, even if you're stealing it via a stream. FS1 just doesn't have that breadth of coverage to ride having crap on that nobody cares about, and they have to, they're going for the dramatic.
Yeah, I would put it this way. If you like ESPN, you can watch Stephen A. Smith for 3 hours and then Pat McAfee for 3 hours, and then maybe you'll get some sports content. But that's, unfortunately, and that's just news in general, it seems, anymore. People want more opiniontainment than they do factual discussions, Big Ten needs to invite schools with cash. Schools like Texas Tech. Trust me, there's a school out there with a lot more cash than Texas Tech that has been making overtures, to put it lightly, to the Big Ten. Like, we'll take no media payment for the media deal to the Big Ten. So there's more schools out there with deeper pockets than even Texas Tech.
You're not referring to Duke, or you're referring to somebody else that's doing the Duke plan?
I'm referring to what I've heard about Duke. But it's the SMU plan, just more money.
Right.
Illinois or Wisconsin can fire Fickle after they lose to Illinois again. The Big Lubbock, what's up, Jets? Thank you, Moen, for taking up for Texas Tech on Friday. Yeah, listen, I know, and you I don't get it either. The conspiracy theory around Texas Tech and the evil, Utah can do the same thing if Utah wants to. Utah just doesn't have that kind of booster. So, sounds like a Utah problem.
Yeah, well, the problem is that Utes talking about how finance companies spend money, and in the consumer brands world, you got to spend a lot more money than that on your marketing plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, my only thing with Texas Tech is I don't know if Joey McGuire's the guy. That's my question this season. Yeah, the quarterback is not a top tier quarterback, but for me it comes down to Joey McGuire and his decision making.
Joey McGuire is my sneaky hot seat person for this year because he was given everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Texas Tech does not have a history of sticking with coaches very long over the last 20 years, either circumstantial or people leaving, right? And he's had okay seasons. He's turned it around from his predecessor, but not necessarily a lot better than his predecessor's predecessor. And now that you got all this money, and the way you got that is by the boosters being up your butt with the checks, right? That is a formula for instant dissatisfaction because the boosters have the money. They might have the money to boost you out and boost somebody else in with a bigger paycheck that they feel more confident can deliver. So I think that he is on a sneaky hot seat, not because I'm expecting Texas Tech to not do good, because that's not what I think. But if he doesn't live up to their expectations, I don't know that he gets a grace period. And if Mike Norvell can go from 13-0 to 2-10 on the hot seat, Joey can.
Yeah, it's for Joey. I think the problem is you've got a booster willing to spend money. He will go out there to get a proven winner, whether that's Urban Meyer.
There is no revenue cap on that one, right?
There's no revenue cap. So you could go get an Urban Meyer. You could go get a Chris Peterson out of retirement. I know that people have mentioned Nick Saban as a possibility coming out of retirement. So, I mean, yeah, for me, it comes down to Joey McGuire. He could have that Ryan Day season. He could have it where they make a run and he saves his job, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Shonsky says Wisconsin needs to get back to their roots. I agree 100%. Notre Dame is the gem. The other two are I think he's trying to say meh. No, I disagree. I think Clemson, Florida State, and Miami are all right up there with Notre Dame.
All of them on their worst years still outdraw the bottom third of the current Big Ten on the TV side at a minimum.
Doc Gibbs, good to see you, Doc. Big difference. University of Texas didn't need the SEC for cash reasons. They did and still do have the cash. You're right. They needed the SEC for prestige reasons, and they got it. So they could leave behind the teams that they didn't think were worthy of being in the same airspace as Texas and start treating a new conference full of opponents like that.
All of that is true, Doc Gibbs, no doubt. But let's not act like even Texas is above wanting $60 million more a year, $60 million more a year in their media deal in the next couple of years, because that's what they're getting.
And that's true, but they probably could have gotten, you're probably right, not nearly as much. But, the Big 12 had already shown that they would give unequal revenue shares. So,
for sure, but that Big 12 deal was however much millions it was, right? Minus them. But where were they going to get to make a gap of $60 million? It's like the ACC with their unequal revenue sharing deal. Granted, that deal wasn't negotiated new, but you can, for Florida State, Clemson, whoever, you can raise your floor and increase your ceiling, but all you're doing is reducing a deficit, and you're still, if you max out, going to be $30 million plus away from the SEC and Big Ten by 2029, even if you got everything that you could maxed out.
Absolutely. Let's see. Cranky Tigers here. Good show. Yes, we're going to talk about Clemson here in a little bit. Just give me another second. I just want to try and make sure we get everybody. Doc Gibbs, the Big Ten will always open a spot for Notre Dame regardless. It's too valuable. It's too valuable of a brand. It's one of the most valuable brands in college football. And it exceeds the value. And I'm sorry, Florida State, Clemson, and Miami fans. I still think you're great brands. I think you're on par with Notre Dame as far as brands go right now. But as far as value goes, because of Notre Dame being basically a national brand, associated, primarily with, American Catholics, it's going to be a more valuable brand than those three.
I don't think you have to apologize for that. It's pretty well known. I'm hoping their brand looks a little bit worse on Labor Day.
Of course you are. That should be, man, I'm telling you what, we got a great slate of games to open the college football season.
Week 1 is friggin' there are
It
4
is
unbelievable.
packed.
There are a lot of really great games, but there are 4 ridiculous games, and
Yes.
then one you just have to tune in. You got Texas at Ohio State. You got Clemson and LSU at Clemson, like the battle of Death Valleys and Texas and Tigers. You got Notre Dame at Miami. There's another one, another one that's escaping me. But you even have things like Utah at UCLA, which is a great late night game, cross conference former Pac-12. You got TCU at North Carolina for the beginning of the Jordan Brand, Bill Belichick era on Labor Day night.
Yeah, just great, man. And it's only like 5 weeks away.
Alabama, Florida State, right?
Alabama, Florida State. There you go.
That's the one I was missing, which is who the hell knows, right? With that one, it's either of somebody rising or the beginning of pain. Like whatever way that goes is going to be a lot of signals for 2 programs this year.
Mosito, good to see you, Mosito. It's been a while. SEC can't risk rumblings of Big Ten's next media contract. SEC need to do something by 2028 or Big Ten will eat first and better. SEC next contract is 2034. The SEC they've got pro rata in their contract with the ESPN. They can add people, but it doesn't mean that it opens up the deal for renegotiation. So, the Big Ten may eat first. And
do you have any idea the history of why the Big Ten wasn't able to get a pro rata into their contract, but the SEC was?
Probably because the Big Ten was dealing with 3 different partners, technically, and the SEC was dealing with 1. So it's a lot easier to go to 1 person and get permission than it is to go to 3 people and get permission. Now they did get Notre Dame established in there. Notre Dame gets full rights plus 3. Right. So they were able to get that done. Thank you for the super chat, Mosito. It is much appreciated, sir. The Big may eat first. They may. Could very, very well happen. But that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Let's jump into this topic before we run out of time. I want to talk about the Big Ten as an entity in the southeast United States. The Big Ten has primarily been a Midwest conference throughout its history, adding contiguous states up until the West Coast adds. Even Maryland and Rutgers were contiguous to the Big Ten, gave you a little bit of the East Coast. But I think they adapted. Both those schools, I think, adapted pretty well to the Big Ten. The West Coast schools, you got USC, you got UCLA. Eventually, you picked up Washington, Oregon. I think those schools fit pretty well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the past relationship that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 had as quote-unquote sister conferences. So I think they kind of fit fairly well. Obviously travel issues, but Southeastern, that's a whole different beast right there. Florida State, Miami, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Duke, North Carolina, Virginia. These are all different kind of... Virginia, North Carolina, not so much. Okay, Virginia, North Carolina, even Georgia Tech to an extent. You could imagine those schools as Big Ten schools. But what do you think about the potential for culture shock, importing the Big Ten brand into the Southeast?
Well, I think there's going to be there's different types of culture shocks depending upon which way they go, right? In terms of, because Tallahassee, Miami, the whole thing about it, the further south in Florida you go, the further north you are, is true. So there's two different things there, culture-wise there. So the players and the fan bases mix. Like, there are fans throughout all of them. Florida State's got a strong fan base down in the south. So if they were to go, on the one hand, the Big Ten has some metropolitan experience with diversity. Chicago is a diverse city. Miami has diversity, leans a little bit more Latin American versus other Hispanic integrations and other racial groups, what have you, might there, versus like Florida State. Virginia and North Carolina, I think, is a very fair assessment. Georgia Tech is also metropolitan, but clearly Atlanta in the south, but it is a mecca for people coming to Atlanta from the southeast, so you have a little bit more diversity there. From a fan base perspective, you have a ton of Big Ten alumni down in South Florida, Central Florida on down, but on both coasts, right? So you create an instant road trip that's easier to get to. I'm sure a lot of people would like to take the LA road trip, but it is a further hike than Miami will be.
Yeah.
But Georgia Tech is actually way closer to some cities than people think. Just if you just look at the map, it's not even an insane drive to go from Atlanta to some parts of the Big Ten in the central part. People just think it's a lot further south than it is from those states. So I don't think it's as much of a culture clash. I think it's more of a culture adding versus, if they were to add Alabama as an example, or Mississippi. Florida State's a little bit different, but Florida State is also pulling from all of Florida and other states too. So Tallahassee and Miami are clearly different, though.
Yeah, but Florida State, Clemson, a lot of times you hear, especially from SEC people, Big Ten football's boring. It kind of gets associated with, the ACC, the SEC, these school, points in bunches, defense optional, sort of situations. I wonder how well, like I said, the West Coast teams, they seem to adapt it into the Big Ten pretty well. Washington and Oregon, especially because they desperately wanted in the Big Ten. But I mean, even the LA teams, as much groaning and moaning they did over travel, I think they integrated really well. I think their fans integrated really well. But culture shock, and I'm not even talking politics or anything like that,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
demographically, I mean, the South is growing. Atlanta's growing, Florida's growing, South Carolina's growing, North Carolina's growing. All these southeastern states, people are retiring and going there. So you're getting some Big Ten people that are actually settling in these places. But then you've got these, let's say Clemson diehards in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida State diehards in Florida State, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. How are they going to... Is it going to be more Southern hospitality or more Southern hostility? Would be my question that I want to put to the chat. What do you guys think?
Interesting.
You're
to
muted,
see what
Rob.
people say. I'm not. I was going to say,
Okay.
It's interesting to see what people are going to say on that. Their game dates. I think a lot of them will see if it depends upon which schools come in, right? If
Sure.
they are picking in, if Clemson and Florida State come in, you will see a very traditionally southeastern, massive tailgate experience for both of those. Miami, for bigger games, is an insane tailgate experience, but it's definitely different. Just even from like music coming out from the speakers, but it's all over the place, right? From it's multicultural, so you're going to hear a lot of different things, but the food you'll see is different. And if you're not a jerk, people will be open to you. If you're people who are drunk are idiots, no matter what state you're in.
Right. I agree with you 100%. I would put Miami on a different level because I think Miami is more of a, very, very specific kind of almost niche based. In South Florida, it's kind of a kingdom of its own. The kingdom of South Florida, they mention it in recruiting all the time. But Clemson and Florida State are interesting to me. Not what you would consider typical Big Ten schools. Academically, but even, I mean, from a cultural standpoint, how well do you think, let's say Clemson and Florida State, for the sake of speculation, Clemson and Florida State make it into the Big Ten. The Big Ten moves first, says, media partners say, we need brands, we will pay for brands. Big Ten, go get Florida State and Clemson, and then work on getting them to AAU. How well do you think they adapt?
I think they'll adapt fine. Like, I think they'll adapt more than fine. First of all, they'll be thrilled to get the hell out of the ACC, right? And most of their fan bases will be too. Some of those fan bases will be split about the SEC versus the Big Ten if they thought they had an opportunity one way or the other. But either way, they'll be thrilled to be out of the ACC and the inferiority complex that is around that. I think what you'll see, though, is an interesting question is, you know, if Florida State, Clemson, Miami, suddenly all of their, you know, if the first 2 seasons, all of their schedules have them on the road up north, as opposed to split fairly evenly or maybe even at home towards the end of the season. So all the, you know, the new Big Ten schools can have a good warm winter road trip. You'll start hearing bitching about, hey, like, of course you guys are scheduling all the Florida State and Miami and Clemson. Last 3 weeks are all up in Wisconsin and, you know, Michigan kind of thing. Then you'll start to hear the bitching. But I think they'll assimilate well. If you're Miami, you know, Mario's already has an offensive line that would fit in the Big Ten anyway, right? Even though last year was a fairly dynamic offense. We'll see what happens this year. I think they'll adjust from recruiting. I think the Big Ten will get faster over time because they'll get that many more people from the speed states that even though they are clearly recruiting Florida, it'll just be that much easier to get some of those more of those players on your roster, knowing that you can tell those kids they're going to be able to play at home once during your career at least, right? So I think they'll just be thrilled and relieved to be out of the ACC in one form or another and just put it all on the field and not have to worry about whether they're going to get a fair shake from some committee or compete with a $50 million a year deficit on the media side.
Okay, yeah, that's just, you know, my point is, do you think that there might be, and you mentioned it, let's say Clemson makes it into the Big Ten. Is there any part of that fan base or that culture that says, no, we're a Southern-based team, we're from South Carolina, we belong in the SEC, and we're pissed that we're in the Big Ten. And because we're in the Big Ten, we're going to get pissy about it.
Look, I'm sure that there's always a portion of a fan base that is going to be not happy with the decisions that their administration makes. Whether that takes over all of it, I have no idea.
Yeah, me neither. And it's a question I think is important. The Big Ten, the next move, barring Notre Dame doing something absolutely insane and doing what's best for the sport of college football, barring Notre Dame doing that, the Big Ten's next expansion is in the Southeast. Whether it's Miami, Georgia Tech, Miami, Clemson, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, Georgia Tech. Let's say Duke somehow gets the votes it needs to get in there. The Big Ten is going into the South. This is foreign territory for them. The West Coast schools, yes, we knew each other. We were part of the, you know, distant family reunion kind of situation there. But the USC Trojans, UCLA Bruins, the Washington Huskies, the Oregon Ducks, we knew each other. We interacted with each other. There was a level of familiarity there. There's really not that level of familiarity with anybody in the Southeast to the Big Ten.
But this familiarity, you know, I would say geographically for some, you know, a lot of Big Ten fans have been to South Florida for sure, right?
Lots of alumni too.
A lot of people in Atlanta, right? So you're going to probably have an easy way to assimilate to like your first road trip to the game because you probably have a really good alumni chapter in both of those kind of cities, right? So that you have like a familiarity place, a block of tickets, all those kind of things. You know, listen, I don't think it's going to be as challenging. I think if anything, it's just adding it, making it interesting. You already did that with the West Coast, But even to me as an outsider, the Pac-12, those teams in the Big Ten were so, so linked because of the Rose Bowl
Yeah.
that it never seemed out of step for that to be a natural place for those schools to go. Even though West Coast, different types of offenses, theoretically different recruiting bases, it just felt differently. I know this feels a little bit different because it is going south, but ultimately you're just adding some more interesting road trips. It's not like Florida State or Clemson or Miami have tried to hide from playing schools up north. Maybe not all the time, but there's definitely history in all of those schools in playing people across the country. Georgia Tech as well, and I'm not trying to leave anybody else out, but the North Carolina Virginia conversation is its own thing. That is, you can have the discussions of how those cultures would fit, but I don't. It's kind of along the same lines as what you might think from a Clemson and Florida State perspective to me.
Yeah, and remember too, the West Coast schools, academically elite institutions, for the most part. That also helped a lot with the Big Ten. Hey, we can work on collaborative research together, and that sort of thing. I just it almost feels like to me, Clemson and Florida State would be odd men out, and I just wonder if that wouldn't. I don't want to say any fan base would look down on them because I don't think that's right. But, I mean, it almost feels like they would be, at least until they can get up to AAU status, they would be viewed, I think, unfairly by certain Big Ten fan bases.
Well, maybe they'll say that in whatever cheers and chants they go. But, Clemson right now is, in most people's eyes, one of the 2 or 3 most likely teams to make it to the national championship game this year, right?
Agree,
they have
100%.
3 or 4 players that all are potential, not only first round picks, but depending upon the year and the team and the way the draft falls, all could potentially have seasons worthy of being the number 1 overall pick. If you're in Iowa and Clemson's on your schedule and coming to there, you're like, I don't know if I should buy tickets for this one because they're not AAU yet. You're coming in. Now, you might give them crap in the parking lot in your taunt of, hey, you're not AAU. And if I was a Clemson fan doing that, I'd be like, hey, please let me know when your last national championship would be. I drop my mic and go get a beer somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know when Iowa's last national championship would be.
I would ask Kurt Signetti to Google it, but I'm afraid he might see everybody calling him a coward for dropping Virginia.
That's Indiana, not Iowa.
I know. I'm saying I'm just moving along the Big Ten.
Oh, okay.
I'm along the Big Ten. I'm just moving along.
No, it's just it's a question for me. Culture clash. I'm interested in it. I want to hear what people in the Southeast, people who are fans of Florida State, people who are fans of Clemson, people who are fans of Miami, Georgia Tech. How would you feel about being in the Big Ten? I mean, you mentioned it. How would you feel about going to Iowa City, Iowa?
Look, I think a lot of those experiences people would love to have once. I don't know that they necessarily would want to go again and again. I literally have no idea because I've never been to them. But I know I wanted to go for the longest time to Nebraska and that was completely because I encountered Nebraska fans at the Rose Bowl. Granted, it was a very good outcome for Miami at that point, but that had nothing to do with the fact that those fan bases were pretty awesome pregame, right? And the couple of days at all the events when in there. So I wanted to go check out that fan base, knowing how many games they consecutively sold out, to see what Lincoln was like what fostered all of that. So I think there's there'll still be a lot of curiosity to check out new venues for the first time, knock off stadiums off of your list. I think there's a two-way on all of that side. And I'm sure the Florida State fans are probably cringing that I'm the one having to defend Florida State, Miami, Clemson, but I'm saying what I actually think would happen.
Just to be clear, I'm not attacking Florida State, Clemson, or Miami, or Georgia.
I'm just seeing some of the chats.
Right.
They're calling you the Moe and wet towel.
Moe and wet towel, Moen's against Florida State, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we can all agree there's a cultural difference between the Big Ten and Florida State. I mean, the Big Ten in Miami, the Big Ten in Clemson, the Big Ten in Georgia Tech to a lesser extent, because I think, Georgia Tech's a Big Ten school. Just, they're basically Northwestern in Atlanta.
I don't know. It would be great for, I'm of the side of the equation of having different cultures and different experiences is actually a good thing. I don't need to eat vanilla ice cream every single freaking
Sure.
day.
100% agree. It's just interesting to me how those schools would feel, especially with all the years of. There's been this animosity between the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, no, but the thing is, ACC teams, a lot of us, I can't speak for North Carolina because they've owned the conference, have not really liked the ACC. And whether it's, whether Florida State and Clemson have had their beefs over the last years, Miami, despite not winning a conference championship, still has felt gypped all the time, perceived or real, right? So I don't think that there's a lot of people who are in the mix for realignment that really they don't have love for the ACC anymore, or never did. There's not a lot of people chanting it just means more, or just means a little bit more kind of thing from the ACC. So I think they just want a home in some place that makes them feel like their program's safe for the future.
Well, yeah, I think everybody definitely wants that. I was talking more of a individual cultural, like Florida State's culture. It's kind of, they're kind of rooted in the deep South.
It's hard for me to tell because most of my exposure to Florida State fans right now is via online and the shows, right?
Sure,
and
absolutely.
And a lot of that fan base was for the last year and a half, was so anti-ESPN for understandable reasons that they were
Rightfully
therefore
so.
Also anti-SEC as the front for ESPN, as also rightfully so, right? So I don't know whether that's a bubble reflection of, I think my guess is that most Florida State fans would want to go to the Big Ten, even if out of spite for that. But I don't know if that's just a reflection of being in this community talking about this stuff all the time versus the average fan who might still have season tickets for the Knowles and might do 1 or 2 road trips a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, let's see what some other people are saying. This was a comment-driven show. Let's get some comments. MBM, our Oklahoma State Cowboy friend, says SEC travel will be much better. Absolutely. The SEC is the best football, baseball, and will be the best basketball conference with UNC Duke by far. Well, MBM, for being the best football conference, they certainly haven't won the national championship the last 2 years. Jack Matheson says, just seems wrong to have the Big Ten in the South. See, this is kind of what I'm thinking
We're
of.
about 13 years past what just seems right for college football conversation.
True. It just seems wrong that Notre Dame's not in the Big Ten. D5 Terp says, I don't think Georgia Tech Miami is a right blend for the Big Ten. Not without a heavy hitter brand like Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State once. Miami is a heavy hitter brand, guy. Miami has 5 national championships. In case you were wondering, in case you forgot. And they probably had an opportunity to make the playoffs last year. If not for Travis Hunter's monster season, I think Cam Ward probably wins the Heisman last year.
Yeah, Miami's been 7-5 for the last 20 years, right? With a few exceptions. That's the average thing. But the floor has still been more TV viewers than at least a third of the Big Ten in a given year. And when Miami's good, people hate watch them too.
Yeah, and every team has down seasons. Florida State was 2-10 last year. So, I mean, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that good teams can have bad seasons. Ohio State was 6-6 when Luke Fickell was head coach. Aaron Frazier says, as a Miami fan who is a Chicago native but lived in Tampa Bay for 20-plus years, I will tell you Florida is full of Big Ten alums and fans from the Midwest and East Coast. Very good. Awesome, epic, cool, strong Nathan, man that eats food. None of this will stop Pitt from sucking. You're right. Nah, I can't eat shit, Pitt. Daniel Gordy.
If a Pitt sucks in a forest, does anybody hear it?
I don't like Pitt. I live in Naples, and all of the neighbors on my street have moved here from Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Illinois, and Minnesota. Big Ten alumni. Yeah, they just can't take the winters anymore, Daniel. Real Midwesterners love this icy winters. Jack Matheson says Southern hostility. Morris Simmons says, y'all putting a lot behind Notre Dame. When was the last time Notre Dame did anything? They played in the national championship last year, Morris.
I mean, dude.
That's pretty damn good.
I get it, but they were in the national title game last year. No comment.
They were in the national title game with Manti Te'o was their linebacker.
Like, I'm not sitting here slurping on Notre Dame. I forget it's a team I hate the most in college football. Or unless it's the Gators, I'm not really sure. It depends upon my mood, but probably close to it. But they were in the playoff national title game last year. So the last time, they came in second last year out of 133 teams, essentially.
Yeah, after losing to Northern Illinois. So
yes.
Go Black 45 says Miami, Georgia Tech, Duke elitism will fit damn well in the Big Ten. I don't disagree. I think Duke and Georgia Tech in particular would probably fit well in the Big Ten. And I'm sure schools like Michigan and Wisconsin and Washington would love to have those schools in the Big Ten. My question, though, is mostly directed towards Clemson and Florida State. Here comes Moan with the wet towel. Wrap it around your head so they can't track you, Quaid. C. Curtis says Miami wants to be a big school. Miami will roll fine. Florida State and Clemson, in my opinion, will be jazzed to play a national schedule. Notre Dame now has a relationship with Notre Dame. I think he means Clemson equals travel partner. Yeah, it could be that could be a motive to get the Clemson Tigers into the Big Ten. Screw with Notre Dame, which I'd be fine with. Listen, I'm a spiteful asshole. I would love to take Clemson just to fuck with Notre Dame.
I would love to see it too. I wish the Big Ten was purely making a decision based off of building the best football conference they could. I realize they're not, and I realize and understand the reasons for not doing that. But that would clear up all of this, right? Because you wouldn't be talking about North Carolina and Virginia. You would be talking about getting Notre Dame if you can, Miami, Clemson, Florida State, and depending upon Notre Dame and how many teams you want to go, somebody else, whether it's a Georgia Tech, a Virginia Tech, a North Carolina, but that's not realistic based off of what we know.
Listen, again, there used to be an old musical group called the $1 Million Quartet with Johnny Cash and Roy Orbison and Jerry Lee Lewis. And if you could get Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame, if you could get those four schools and you're the Big Ten, listen, I don't think there's enough booze in the Midwest to last for the celebration that would happen. I think they'd be ecstatic to get those four brands. They would be the best conference in college athletics. It to me, the value of it would be huge. Cranky Tiger says, Rock, I attended the last ACC championship game between Clemson and Miami. Miami got torched and keyed a lot of Clemson cars on their way out. Their fans are a little thuggish. Just my observation. Listen, every fan base has assholes in it. Every fan base.
Thug is a really loaded word. I would just encourage people to not use that personally. But as I said to Cranky in the chat, I was also at that game and had my spouse had beer thrown at her by Clemson fans. And I don't think that means that Clemson fans are all thuggish.
Yeah, I mean, by the same token, I went to see a game at Heinz Field and got spit on. So, fuck you, Steelers fans. And by the way, the Bengals won that game. And then you did a cheap shot with Kimo von Oelhoffen on Carson Palmer's knee. So, fuck you still, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. I hate to say, but there's not going to be any realignment for a while now. Well, Shonsky, again, I mean, within a 24-month period of 2030, there's likely to be some kind of realignment. Florida State played Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, and Penn State like we never played big schools. Come on now, Mo. And yet you played them in the postseason, though, Morris. I'm not denying that you played those schools. I'm saying, would you be look, Florida State has, I don't know, who is Florida State's rivals? Florida and Miami, I would assume, are the two biggest rivals, right? So, I mean, you could technically play them if Miami was added with Florida State to the Big Ten and we got the Big Ten SEC scheduling agreement figured out. But it's not like I'm saying you guys never played those schools. I'm just saying, you know, you'd be playing a lot of different schools. You'd be playing USC. You'd be playing Oregon. You'd be playing Washington. You'd be playing Ohio State. You'd be playing Michigan. You'd be playing Wisconsin. You'd be playing Iowa. You would go into Purdue on a night game as a number 2 ranked team and lose by 25 points for no goddamn reason other than it's the spoiler makers. So I just want to know how you guys would feel about it. Florida State has played Ohio State 3 times and won each time. Absolutely true, Daniel Gorby. I cannot deny it. But Ohio State has 9 national championships. As an FSU fan, I would not have any remorse being in the Big Ten. As long as we can keep playing Miami and Florida, definitely want to be in one of their conferences. So I don't disagree. I think everybody wants to be in the Power 2 when it's all said and done. Moen, come on out, and you are pro Miami. Listen, I think Miami and Georgia Tech are the 2 obvious adds to the Big Ten if you're a Big Ten president. For the media partners, I think the media partners would probably pull yourselves more towards Miami, Florida State, and Clemson. But I am not pro Miami. Trust me. There's a picture right here behind me of the infamous pass interference call between Miami and Ohio State in the 2003 Fiesta Bowl. I was at the game. That I am not pro Miami. Rock will attest to it. Rock will attest.
You know, you're not. Like, speaking the best information that you know that happens to be in favor of one program or another based off of information you're on the understanding of the time is not the same thing as being pro something. It can't be that just because somebody says something that you do not like. Could be wrong. You don't know what's going to happen, Moen, right? At the end of it, you're just relaying the information, which is why people come to watch you, right or wrong. Doesn't necessarily mean you're a pro Miami. I haven't heard you offer to ever say that was a bad call yet.
Because it wasn't a bad call.
Or said that, hey, you're going to send Jeremiah Smith back to Miami for me.
No, listen, the call was late, but it was the right call. Watch the tape. You have an argument that the call was late. I'm not going to deny that. The call was late. He threw the flag late, but it was the right call.
As long as the right call is called to the other ones that somehow Ohio State fans earlier in the game seemed to miss. One was okay, but the one that didn't go that way.
Several that were missed for Miami as well.
You're such a pro-Miami guy, Moen.
I'm so pro-Miami, I know. CFB peek around the corner with Greg Pflugar. Greg the Cooler in the house. He saw me wearing the jungle attire and said, let's cool this down. There is not a cultural difference between Minnesota and Wisconsin, but there's an axe difference. One of them is axeless, and the other is the beloved Golden Gophers. Damn. I wish I had the Law and Order sound effect right now.
And in my opinion, one of them is going 9-3, and the other one's not.
Oh, yeah.
They may go 9-3, but I am still telling you, I am taking Wisconsin to win that axe. I am taking Wisconsin in the rivalry game this year. Sorry, Greg. Love you, buddy. But for some reason, listen, Michigan beat Ohio State when Ohio State was a 21-point favorite and went on to win the national championship. Rivalry games in the Big Ten, I don't need to tell you this. Weird shit happens. So Wisconsin could be 3-8 and win that game. It could happen. And I think it will happen. But thank you for the super chat, Greg. Curtis says, Greg Pflugar, there we go, said that quite possibly the SEC may not want Florida State and Clemson. And keep in mind, Notre Dame may want Clemson as a travel partner to the Big Ten. Yes, it may not be Stanford. If Stanford is kept out of the Big Ten, that is Stanford's fault. We've talked about this a little bit on the channel before, Curtis, but There were people who were pushing for Stanford to join the Big Ten when Washington and Oregon and all that stuff was going on. And listen, Stanford did something they shouldn't have done. So, but I won't curse Stanford fans. C. Curtis, another $5 super chat. Thank you, Curtis. Much appreciated, sir. Florida State, Miami, Clemson, and Notre Dame, along with the big current brands, would give Fox, CBS, and NBC, would have incredible games every single week. Absolutely right. You could add a fourth media partner, and they would have incredible games every week. Look, like I said, if there was enough booze in the Midwest, I don't think there'd be enough for that celebration for the Big Ten.
Look, the 4 big games we talked about in the beginning of the show, not including the TCU North Carolina game on week 1, the right dominoes fall. Those all would be SEC Big Ten clashes.
Yeah.
Or internal conference games.
I mean, the AAU thing isn't that big of a deal when you consider that Nebraska hasn't been AAU for 20 years. And they apparently don't plan on getting there either.
Yeah, that's a good question. Who's closer to getting it? Clemson getting it or Nebraska regaining it?
Clemson getting it. Nebraska's problem is Nebraska, and we've talked about it, their hospital system, their medical school, it's in Omaha. It's not in Lincoln, and they are penalized for that. Doesn't mean the research money doesn't get pulled into the Big Ten's research pot, but it definitely hurts them when it comes to AAU. So thank you for the super chat, Curtis. I will give you a winner.
Winner.
Much appreciated, sir. Timothy Green's in the house. Hello to the panel. What's up, man? Just thought I'd drop in and hit that like button. Thank you, Timothy Green. It is much appreciated, sir. We do appreciate you all the time. You're one of our proudest supporters out here. Mo, and how would fans in Des Moines, Bloomington, Lincoln feel having more big city schools in the 10? There is a hard set belief about in cities like those. I don't disagree, Go Black 45. I 100% agree with you. I think there is a difference. And I just don't know how those culture clash is the best way I can put it. How is it? Listen, Iowa City, Iowa football is king. It really is. Miami, there's a lot of stuff going on in Miami.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't Iowa City football basically Clemson without good barbecue, but something else to eat, right? Like, they're both like college towns that are, the schools are, that's the main sport in town. I think there's a lot that both of those schools would, those kind of schools would embrace, I guess is my take on it. I mean, it'd be weird if the Big Ten actually embraced Miami more because they're just more familiar with traveling to South Florida potentially, or maybe Orlando, even though Orlando and Miami are quite different.
I think it'd be interesting. I think it's an interesting dichotomy. Football isn't the face of the Big Ten in college football. It's a research conference that has a few teams that take football seriously enough to compete nationally. Who got the most teams in the college football playoff last year, Rock? Which conference?
Big Ten.
That research conference got the most teams in the college football playoff last season, Shonsky. Thank you, but we do take football seriously. And more schools are getting better at football in the Big Ten. Illinois, Indiana, for example. And I think Illinois is a playoff team this year, and I'm calling that right now. Bob, if you ever came back to Morgantown again, we would treat you very good again because you are a great person. All right, Bob. Matt Troop, haven't seen you around here before. Make sure you give us a like and a subscribe. He's letting us know when Iowa won its national championship.
Appreciate it.
21, 22, 56, 58, 60. Bingo. Question, do the Big Ten want to compete against the SEC or not? The Big Ten in bowl season this year was, I believe, 5-1 against the SEC. So the Big Ten is doing a pretty damn good job of competing against the SEC. That's because big fans don't sport the jort shorts like ACC, SEC fans do. I'm wearing jorts right now, brother. You have no idea.
The jorts kind of stop at Gainesville. They don't really go all the way down to Miami. They definitely stop at Gainesville. Gainesville's the jort capital of America.
We love our cargo jorts in the Midwest. Aaron Frazier says the culture thing isn't really a big deal. Most of the current students aren't from those states. They are from different cultures. MBM says Michigan doesn't count. Wrong button. I agree with you. Michigan doesn't count. Morris Simmons says, bring on the SEC. I'm done. Okay. I guess because I'm pro Miami. Moen, as much as I like you before, I really like you now. Since you do not like the Pitt Panthers, let's go Mountaineers. I would love to see the Buckeyes play Pitt in a bowl game. No, just go back to the game where Ohio State beat them 70-7, I believe was the final score. And that's one of the reasons Mark May has never liked the Buckeyes since. So I'm sure you can find that one on YouTube, Timothy Green. Now check that out.
Hey, look, if Pitt can keep Eli standing this year, they could be a surprising team in the ACC.
Hey, I still say eat shit, Pitt. Outside of Oklahoma fans, LSU Saint fans are the worst I've seen fought.
I like the / fought.
Fought, yeah. As far as college fans, none are worse than Michigan. Because Michigan has an arrogance that they didn't even earn. Michigan counts their national championships and forgets that half of them happened before McKinley was assassinated, you know. They've won 2 national championships. They've won 1 national championship in the 21st century. Ohio State's won 3. I'm just saying. And the one you won, guys, let's be honest.
I'm only sad that cell phone cameras didn't exist in the early 2000s, because the most viral thing I ever would have seen would have been a Florida fan very upset about the outcome of a game, going up to a Latina female in the old Orange Bowl and talking too much, and how fast that one punch from a girl who's like 5'6", 120 put him down.
Yeah, like Michigan fans, most arrogant fan base in the world, with nothing to back it up. People bitch about Ohio State being arrogant and jerks. It's true. But we win. We do win. And Caleb Downs had a great thing on Instagram he retweeted. I can't wait until my happiness is based entirely on what a few 18 to 21-year-olds do. Which is absolutely true in Columbus. Because I'm telling you, on a loss, a Monday after a loss, shit in Columbus ain't the same, guys. It ain't the same. You ain't, if you're in the sales business, you ain't making sales on that Monday. Greg the Gold coming in from the top rope. Greg the Cold, forever the cooler. How do you tailgate all day in late November up there in Wisconsin, Minnesota? I would not want to do that. Booze. Lots of booze. And brats. Booze and meat. That's how.
Or you get the big noon game, and that way the window's closed.
Booze and meats. And cheeses. As much as Greg dislikes it, you do put cheese on that meat. I'm with Rock on the bad call. Definitely awful call to decide a natty. Okay. It was the right call. If you're ever up in Columbus, we'll go to the Hall of Fame Cafe, and we'll get the booth right under the pitcher, and I will show you how that is pass interference.
And in the meantime, Cranky Tiger, you can fly out to see me, and that will be the length of time it took for the referee to change his mind.
Still made the right call. Mona Vision is on his 4th bottle of Mad Dog tonight. No, thank you, sir. I will not be drinking that again.
I think he sent some to Morris.
That's right. Morris has got that.
That's the only reason why he's going off on you, because you gave him bad Mad Dog.
Probably. Catholics, convicts, Catholics, nerds. I think he's talking about Stanford there, Catholics, nerds.
Yeah, for sure. And this is my gratuitous moment, that a reminder that the year that those T-shirts came out, Notre Dame had more arrests and more people go to jail than the Miami team did.
Miami needs a 60K on or near campus football. Well, so does UCLA, but they're still in the Big Ten.
Miami, yes. Under the things that are going to never happen, one is me rooting for Florida. And the second thing is the city of Beverly Hills, a.k.a. Coral Gables, allowing a 60,000 stadium on the campus of Miami.
Speaking of Big Ten fans, culture shock. I ate Dan, who appears to be an Illinois fan, says the Big Ten does not need Florida State or Clemson with 2 exclamation points.
It's not so much of a need. Like your life should also be filled with wants. They should want those schools in the conference.
Doc Gibbs says, just for the record, as far as ACC schools go, North Carolina State, with its large, I think he's saying Carnegie Research ranking and expenditure, is much closer to AAU status than Clemson. Also, support for Stanford to join the ACC. You're right. Maybe that pushes North Carolina State into an AAU situation by adding Stanford and Cal. We know they were the ones that kind of buckled. The alternative hypothesis: the Big Ten shouldn't be good at football. Football is traditionally a kind of Saturnalia.
Well, holy crap! I got to Google that because I definitely have never heard that.
You've never heard Saturnalia before?
I've never heard that.
It's a Roman festival that was usually held in the later months of the year.
See, it was 6:23 on the West Coast. Usually, there's one thing I learned today. It took till 6:23 for me to learn something new. I've literally never heard of that.
Traditionally, bringing in evergreens into the household. That's why we have Christmas trees this Saturnalia. There you go.
I know other types of Roman events.
Yes, so do I. Bob Swanger says, I agree, Moen. Eat shit, Pitt. Tony Lawson says, Michigan has a winning record against Ohio State. That's very true, Tony. They do have a winning record that they amassed prior to the start of the railroad panic in 1894. So, I mean, yes, Michigan can be as arrogant as they want, but come on, man. We've been winning national championships in the later part of the century. They were winning them all before, you know. Nerds equal Stanford. I don't agree. I don't disagree with you. Stanford are a bunch of nerds, but I wish I could have gotten Stanford. James Ward says, longtime watcher, bro, love the show. I'm a lifetime Florida State fan, and I cannot wait for the Seminoles to be in the Big Ten. There you go, Seminole fans sounding off. He wants to be in the Big Ten.
James, I'm sorry to tell you that Morris has basically deemed that Florida State will not go to the Big Ten. He's done with it.
He wants the SEC. Art Graw, Big Ten already has Notre Dame. I don't know what people are talking about. Their hockey program was mid. You're absolutely right. We do have them in hockey. Since people say the Big doesn't need Florida State, Clemson, Miami, etc., does Fox agree with that business view? I don't. I think Fox would, again, if it's just based on the media partnership, I think Fox would take that in a minute. You add Notre Dame into that, the SEC wouldn't be able to compete with the Big Ten. Problem is you do have 3 business partners. Problem is you will probably need a 4th to make that financially viable. But, listen. Again, I mentioned it earlier, $1 million quartet. That's, if you could get that, you win. That's checkmate. That would be checkmate in conference realignment. Do you agree, Rock? That would be checkmate in conference realignment.
Absolutely. You make sure those schools are rotating well against whoever is doing the lowest ratings in the conference, right? And you instantly take every single one of those games up to north of $1 million, if not to $2 million, and just from the presence of those other teams matching it, let alone what happens when Florida State, plays Ohio State.
MBM coming in with the top rope with the A fellow OSU supporting an OSU says Ohio State is the only program that hasn't lost more than 8 games in a season. Absolutely. Very consistent program, Ohio State is. Lots of near misses, the John Cooper era, a couple in the Jim Tressel era, even a couple in the Urban Meyer era, the Michigan State game and championship, Big Ten championship. Shonsky says, I know you haven't beaten Michigan since the 2020 COVID year. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But also, Michigan, I don't know if you heard this, and maybe you can verify it with if you've heard it, Rock, but Michigan had some kind of scandal where they were advanced scouting, and there was a guy on like the sidelines in a disguise at like a Western Michigan or a Central Michigan game.
Rumor has it he had like those weird glasses that look like he was a light man's version of the Terminator.
Yeah, funny how Michigan started winning after that happened.
I'm sure
Michigan,
it's fairly coincidental. I mean, it's not like Sonny Duke said anything about changing their signs before playing Michigan because they knew about it in the playoffs that year when he was still at TCU.
Yeah, Michigan got their shit pushed in so bad under Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel they resorted to cheating.
I mean, I thought they literally greenlit Training Day 2 movie based off of how
That's
bad
right.
their shit got pushed in.
That's absolutely right. They were deep in the shower on that one. Ironically, SEC fan bases do not want Florida State and Clemson because they are such big rivals with each other. Florida State and Clemson would be welcomed into the Big Ten because the animosity isn't there. I don't disagree. I don't think there is that much animosity between those two schools and the Big Ten. I think it's just more, I don't know, maybe it's more the way they look at Saturday football versus the way other schools in the Big Ten look at Saturday football.
I'll never get fan bases. Look, I understand that losses hurt, but in a 12, 16, who know how many teams playoff zone, why wouldn't you want to have great games to watch on Saturday? I don't understand the concept, especially when you could probably get away with losing 3 games, maybe more if those two conferences consolidate power even more if it goes to 16. I don't really get it. Like, I've never wanted to be part of a school that was like really excited to get Northwest Southern Memphis State versus playing rivals that I could have a game that I don't know what's going to happen and I hope I win and can brag about it for years.
Again, I think it comes down to like the Big Ten, and I know everybody bitches about big noon kickoff, but for Big Ten, longtime Big Ten fans, noon is Big Ten football. You get up at 7 in the morning, you roll your ass out of bed, you take your girl up there to the tailgate, you make brats, you drink beer until noon, you go watch the game, you pass out in your RV till like 4 or 5 o'clock, and you drive home. Whereas maybe for Clemson fans or Florida State fans, it's more, hey, let's we want a 6 p.m. game. That way we can sit in the parking lot and have a margarita or, you know.
I'm mixed on that. I bet you Florida State fans are also mixed. I'd love to get Ohio State or other schools at the 12 o'clock or 3:30 window game in August in Miami, right? And then when it gets later in the season, I want the games to be at night.
Yeah, guess what? That's not going to happen, Rock.
Of course.
You're never going to get Ohio State or Michigan or any of the power schools in the Big Ten to play a noon game in August in South Florida.
No, but I mean, that's what you want. Like, I don't want to sit in that game, but from a perspective of your team, having a northern team come down in August when it's 100% humidity and 100 degrees, even though it's humid everywhere, and the heat thing is maybe changing over the last 30 years weather-wise. But that was always the thing. Like, you'd be willing to sweat because you knew it was just going to dehydrate the other team. But later in the year, definitely hated the noon games. It was definitely, please give us a 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night game.
Yeah, I don't blame you, but I think Ohio State and Michigan may sway the scheduling committee to make sure that doesn't happen.
Oh, I'm sure. And if you want to know how the Clemson and Miami and Florida State fans will get pissed, is basically do the same thing over time that they perceive Tobacco Road Control did to them in the ACC.
Almighty Finn, damn, my son was born in 1975. Shonsky says, what happened last year, Moen? I don't know. Ohio State won their 9th national championship, Shonsky. Did you catch it? Dominated Tennessee, dominated Oregon. Scoop and score, number 1 play of the season. Jack Sawyer, strip fumble. Quinn Ewers. Jeremiah Smith on 3rd down. Sealing the game for the Ohio State Buckeyes over Notre Dame. I don't know if you saw it or not. Rant, I agree. I'm still pissed BYU dropped the Miami series.
Yeah, me too. I thought that was kind of like, when I hear the complaints about some of those things, like that was a unilateral decision that BYU chose to do that should have been about to happen.
King Spleen says Florida State fan base is pretty national. People tend to forget that. Fantastic brand. I'm not going to deny that, King Spleen. Fantastic brand. Vox Quindaro says white guy version of the Terminator.
Light. I said a light guy version, not a white guy version.
I was going to say,
freaking white dude.
O.J. Simpson was the original choice to play the Terminator. Who knew he was such a great method actor that 10 years later he would murder 2 people? By the way, fuck you, O.J. Moen, what was the bad thing Stanford did when the Big was expanding west? Are you referring to not giving up the Ivy League membership for the BTAA, or was it something else they did? That's part of it. That's part of it. But they said yes before they said no. Michael Smith says half the SEC has failed to win a football conference championship since the late 50s, early 60s. Is it that half that doesn't want the 9-game schedule?
I asked Mr. Flugar the other day about this. Let's say that tomorrow the Big Ten and SEC do kumbaya, right? And they figure out the playoff thing, and SEC goes to 9. What is the workaround that the ACC gets? Is it most of your teams have to play 9, and will allow one school to count Notre Dame as a conference game for the purposes of playing 9 and the 17th? Because the math doesn't math. There's no way for all 17.
I get it.
Like, what is the exception rule other than ACC? You must either add or drop a member.
I think the exception rule is the Notre Dame thing. Like, I know the Notre Dame Stanford game is not considered an ACC conference game. It should be. The Notre Dame Clemson game is not going to be considered an ACC conference game. It should be.
Well, 1 out of every 3 would be a conference game. 2 out of every 3 wouldn't, theoretically.
Right. There's ways that you could do it. I
that's what they have
understand
to
what you're
figure
saying.
out.
Yes, every team could not play 9 conference games in a college football season, and it might be a situation where half the teams play 9 conference games in a season, half play 8, and then the next year it flips. There's things that they've come up with that actually,
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame will continue to play 6 ACC games. You could just have to plan that for some of them, for the purposes of the playoff, there's an asterisk. And for the purposes of considering that you played 9 conference games, you will be able to count Notre Dame as a conference game for this.
Almighty Finn says that was a terrible call in the 03 Fiesta Bowl. There were lots of terrible calls in that game. Missed calls that officials didn't make against Miami for pass interference, but
See, this is why I can have debates with Almighty Finn, and friends call me Sean, because they can be clearly pro FSU fans, but like reasonable conversations.
I don't disagree. The call was late. The flag was late. I understand that. The guy threw his helmet, busted his strap. He couldn't go in to play the next play. But it was the right call. It was pass interference. It was. He made contact with Chris Gamble before the ball was even in his range. So,
or Chris Gamble made contact with the defender who also has the same right for the ball.
No. But he wasn't playing for the defender was not playing for the ball.
I hope you sleep well at night. I know you do.
I know beat Oregon. You're number 1 for the Big, worse than any of the teams they played. Yes, you won the Natty, but it doesn't mean when you didn't lose to Michigan again. Yeah, but you know what? I'd take that Michigan loss if I get that natty. Hey, Rock, would you take a Florida State loss if it means Miami wins the national championship?
Absolutely.
Hey, Shonsky, would you take a loss to Utah if it means BYU wins the national championship?
I mean, I'd hate it, but I'd feel a lot better for 9 months after the title game and for the next 75 years, because we lose to Florida State. That series was competitive. So
Aaron Frazier says it was the wrong call. Andre Johnson was being held all night. Sure. And Michael Jenkins was being held all night as well. What a fucking mess. Some play, some play 9. What the hell? Just play the game. Oh my God, Moen, give it up. My God, it's not disputable. I agree, it's not disputable. It was pass interference. I 100% agree with you, Cranky Tiger. I don't think it's disputable either. MBM says I would take another loss to Oklahoma for a title. Give me the hardware. 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. Let's just beat those Wolverines this year. All right, guys. That's going to do it for tonight. I want to, before we do our last call, let me get to who we're going to thank tonight. We're going to thank our friend Ryan Willie, C. Curtis, Ryan Willie again, Masito, Craig Flugar, and C. Curtis again. Thank you guys for your super chats tonight. They are much appreciated. I owe you guys Sounders next week. I promise I will remember. And if I don't remember, Rock will remind me. And if Rock doesn't remind me, I don't know. But let's get on to our last call.
Well, we got the last 2 media days coming up this week in typical ACC fashion. As usual, they're at the exact same time as the Big Ten, which means the best reporters will not be on site at the ACC ones. They will almost all be at the site of the Big Ten ones. Still don't get why that happens, but the ACC will always ACC. For those of you who are fans of the Big 12, my partner on the other channel, CFB Express, just dropped a video about the Big 12 quarterbacks with a shout out to Ute in them. I'll drop that link in the chat. Consider, if you're looking for something to watch when we wrap up, to head over there and listen to him give Ute the acknowledgement that he's going to reconsider his take on Utah for this upcoming season.
All right. Thank you, Rock. Again, you can find Rock at CFBX, PRESS. Check them out. It is definitely a great channel. First and foremost, if you have not done so yet, like. If you has not done so yet, subscribe. After that, you can head over to CFB Express and like and subscribe. I want to thank everybody who came out tonight and appreciate it. Cranky Tiger became a YouTube member. Thank you, Cranky. Good to see you. Welcome to the College Football Mafia family. We'll have some more members-only content coming up here soon. I just want to say it is Big Ten Media Days this week. I can't wait for Brett Bielema to speak. I really can't. I've got it circled on the calendar. I think Bert is the best soundbite in the business at this point. He holds nothing back. So God bless you, Bert. You're my favorite coach in the Big Ten outside of Ryan Day. I love you. Please don't disappoint me. Please, please, please get that wild soundbite out there.
Yes, please somebody be interesting this week, because the SEC media days were pretty freaking boring to me, with a few minor exceptions.
Yeah, Bert will not hold back. Bert loves to eat, and he loves to give you great sound bites. So I am looking forward to it. For myself, for Rock and Rant, I want to thank you all for coming in tonight. We will catch you next week. Until then, have a good week and peace out.